Yo, what's going on, guys? And I just left the Miami Heat game. Yep, that was something else. But let's get into this offseason. I want to hear what you guys have to say down below in the comment section. What do you guys expect this offseason? The Miami Heat enter the 2025 offseason at a crossroads after a disappointing season end in a first-round sweep by the Cleveland Cavaliers. With Jimmy Butler gone and no plans for a full rebuild, the franchise is focused on figuring out how to retool its remaining core and navigating limited assets, cap constraints, to become a contender again. So let's talk about what do we have to work with. Obviously, Bam Adebayo, a man who is one of the top centers in the NBA, switch big. I had someone bring up that maybe he could lose a pound or two to, make him a better fit and lighter of foot with Kel'el Ware there. But he's the defensive anchor, cornerstone piece, two-way player, signed long-term. Tyler Herro, emerging scorer, all-star, borderline all-NBA player. And he's eligible for a $150 million 3-year extension. My problem is if you sign him to an extension like that, he starts to get into that Zach LaVine, Bradley Beal territory in terms of like contracts that become difficult to trade and you're paying him just to keep him. Like, I low-key think if you could maybe, do you guys think they should trade him? Like, and sell high on him so you guys don't have to get stuck with like his contract and maybe try to do how the Clippers were able to move off of Paul George and redistribute the wealth to build up their depth. Now, Kel'el Ware is obviously a promising young two-way center, and they have Jaime Jaquez and Nikola Jovic. Out of all the young guys, I think Jaquez is the most likely to be traded just because he's more of a swingman, but his body's more of a combo forward. And I think Jovic and Kel'el Ware are better fits who have shown that they can grow into larger roles. And despite the rough season, and that was just because of the Jimmy Butler thing, Miami still has the talent and flexibility to pivot quickly without bottoming out. Now, Miami controls over $60 million in expiring salaries, as Duncan will pick up that option, and they have $26.6 million in Terry Rozier, which I think Terry Rozier should be their best trade chip. And then obviously the next one would be Duncan. I think Duncan, his contract isn't bad. I think I think they should keep Kyle Anderson. He's a good role player. But right there, you see that they have these deals that can be used to create cap space or packaged in a trade for upgrades. I think Rozier's contract, however, is viewed as a major obstacle after a career worst season and becoming benched. I think Davion Mitchell could be potentially used as a sign and trade to bring in a player if he wants to go to a contending team. But if they were to keep Davion Mitchell, I think they need to go point guard by committee, have Davion Mitchell be the sixth man, and then you bring in maybe like a Tyus Jones or a Chris Paul, and you run a point guard by committee, a yin and yang, where one guy's an offensive guy and then Davion, who's kind of a combo guard with point guard like skills, an undersized combo guard, defensive one that would come off the bench and be your pit bull that he is so good at being. As I mentioned before, a contender might want him and he might want to go to a contending team, and they could have like some pieces that they might want to sign and trade if he signs like the full mid-level exception, and you could take back like $7 million in salary if need be. So I think that one's interesting. If they were, what free agents I think they should retain, I think Alec Burks would be one that they should retain, and he would give them value as he was a veteran sharpshooter who, yeah, he missed some time, but for the most part, he was able to remain productive for a Heat squad that needed shooting. And I think Alec Burks fits their culture, and he would just be a veteran minimum. So basically, an inefficient, not inefficient, but a very cheap contract that is effective when need be. Next, I think Duncan Robinson is only guaranteed $9.9 million. So if that is actually a trade chip, we should probably consider, because if you're a contending team or a rebuilding team, Duncan could be a contract you have interest in. Now they're gonna have, I believe, the 20th pick in this year's draft. A player in that range, it's not really a point guard heavy class, and Ben Seraph is the only point guard. He's kind of like a Vasily Micic, Goran Dragic style guard that I think they would have some interest in bringing in a guy like him. Now, outside of that, if they weren't, I think a wing, obviously, Nick Clifford. Nick Clifford is one that I like. I just think they need to go with an older guy, a guy who's going to be able to contribute day one or just be a role player. And they do have 3 tradable first-round picks that they could use in a deal, which is something to look at. But my problem there isn't a big fish that's going to be available. And they do have a trade exception of $16 million that they may use. The non-taxpayer mid-level exception, $14.1 million. Biannual, 5.1. And I think, again, it's not like they're going to go after Zach LaVine, because that would have to be like Wiggins, Robinson, and a pick. I just don't think that's worth it. Kevin Durant is the major swing everybody's going to connect the dots to, just because it's right there. It's one that makes a lot of sense. And one would think, I personally have said, if you could just do, so the deal that I think probably they would want to do is Rozier, and the Suns would want Wiggins because it's just a shorter deal. And I think like a Jaime Jaquez. Maybe a first round pick. Probably a first round pick. I would try to avoid trading a pick, but that's the major swing that's available, and everyone's gonna think it is Rozier, Wiggins, and probably Jaquez, and the pick, draft capital, whatever you want to call it, for Mr. Durant. And that gives you Herro, Durant, and Bam as the core. Kel'el Ware. I think Kel'el would stay, you'd think, unless they really demand Kel'el, because the Suns would like him. Outside of that, point guard, the only point guard I think that would be available for trade and wouldn't cost you an arm and a leg is Anthony Simons. And Anthony Simons would probably be Terry Rozier and Jaime Jaquez for a pick for Anthony Simons. My thoughts, though, is Anthony Simons is a worse defender than Rozier, but he is hopefully a more reliable option. I think it's almost a lateral move, or like hoping that the same thing is going to happen again. I think that dark horse move could be I don't think the Rockets would, like, if they don't want to pay Jabari Smith, or signing Santi Aldama in a sign-in trade and doing something along those lines could be interesting. Now, who's a shooter that they could bring in that would be along the lines of what they need? Obviously, Malik Beasley signed a 1-year deal, and he would be the 3-point bomber that they would love. We've already said re-signing Alec Burks. And point guard, I've said it, I think the free agent market this year isn't the best, as it's a lot of meh. And compared to past years, or really just free agency is kind of dead. And it's not because like it's really the CBA, but this upcoming summer, the point guard market specifically, we talked about Davion Mitchell already being one of the best guys, but outside of Davion is going to be Chris Paul. They're not going to be able to afford Fred VanVleet. That's not realistic, ladies and gentlemen. So to me, when you look out that, you start to scroll down. It's Tyus Jones if you want a safe point guard who has a good assist to turnover ratio, but he doesn't take many risks, and that sometimes leads to like being gun shy. And this season he averaged 11, 6, 2.5 rebounds, a steal a game on 47% from the field almost, and just under 42% from three. That's a decent option. And this isn't going to be a D'Angelo Russell or Russell Westbrook team. Dennis Schroeder is someone that I think they would be interested in, but he's too streaky. So that goes back to if you want the 40-year-old who averaged 9.5 points, 8 assists, 4 rebounds, 1.5 steals on 41.6% from the field and 36% from three. Who's still a floor general, Chris Paul, and he can get his spots. He can still hit the shots from the mid-range and off the dribble. But you would have to do Chris Paul, Tyus Jones, and I think keep Davion Mitchell for that to work. I love Davion Mitchell as he's that 3-and-D combo, undersized combo guard who plays hard on defense and makes a solid impact, and had a great year for them. Now, Trey Jones is another guy who bought him on the bench, and that's what I'm saying. You need to find a point guard. They're not the greatest options, but look. Looking at the team needs, they need a secondary creator to ease pressure off of Bam Adebayo and Tyler Herro. They need more consistent three-point shooting threats. And they need some more depth in terms of size and rebounding behind Ware and Adebayo. So, to me, the Heat are focused on retooling, not rebuilding. And if they can develop their young players like Ware, Jovic, and maybe even Jaquez, and figure out if they should trade or keep and extend Herro, they could strategically use their expiring contracts and trade assets to upgrade the roster and become a contender again, as Miami aims to remain competitive while setting the stage for long-term success. Pat Riley and Eric Spoelstra are going to have to navigate the offseason in a way that will determine whether the Heat quickly return to contention or they become mired in mediocrity. I like to hear what you guys have to say about your expectations and why. That's it. Goodbye. Ciao. Like, comment, subscribe.